So, Islamophobia, we had to do this topic, of course. And in Islamophobia, it includes prejudice against the religion, but it also includes, obviously, racism and prejudice towards Muslims that it's often intertwined, right? So people aren't just targeted because they're Muslim. There's a perceived value, and these individuals, they're targeted based off to include their race, their country of origin, their language, and I said they're intertwined. So you can have somebody, for example, from India, they're Hindu, right? But they're just because they kind of look or sound Muslim, just because an individual might have seen whatever, and they're like, oh, Muslims look like this. They're tan or they're brown, so they might perceive them, and they kind of jumble them up together, and they manifest these, and then they get attacked, and these attacks are manifested first and foremost in harassing, to include online, so cyberbullying, if you want to label it that, harassment in person, heckling the individual. They're also oftentimes attacks are, labeled calling them terrorists. That's the go-to for everyone, or go back to your country type. They're also um, women with hijabs. They're often attacked. I know in UK it is a really big problem with it's a problem in the Indo-Pak region as well. So in Muslim countries, but for a different reason. But when I'm talking about acid attacks, a lot of women in the UK, there's increased uptick of hijab women's getting acid thrown on them because they don't got guns over there. So I guess their go-to is acid attacks or knife attacks as well. And this all comes from the notion that all Muslims, they all practice the same way. They're like one body, right? They practice the same way, they look the same way, they are the same way. These stereotypes start to take root and they start to spread.
I want to go back to your point where you said that it creates stereotype
Stereotypes, yeah.
against the country of origin and language they speak. Because there's a lot of Arab Christians
Yeah.
who speak Arabic, of course, because they're Arab. They grew up in the Middle East, and that's a predominant language in the Middle East. So they say phrases like Allahu Akbar, Inshallah, Alhamdulillah, right? And they're creating a difficult time for those Arab Christians as well. Because these are the phrases that he uses the same as Muslims because we both speak Arabic. Also, shout out to the hijabis, bro. They be going through a lot of this stuff, like the acid attacks and all,
Yeah.
because they represent Islam, because people can tell they're Muslim
Yeah.
because of the hijab and the abayas and everything like that. A reason why there's this Islamophobia is because of Sharia law, right?
Mm-hmm.
It comes from people just not understanding what Sharia law is,
Yeah.
right? So there's this thing, a lot of the Sharia law punishments are more harsh than people are used to, right?
In today's society, right?
Exactly.
Because I know it's a big wave against the death penalty, right?
Right.
People aren't for that. They rather spend our tax dollars feeding rapists and murderers
Right.
and have them live rent free.
Right.
But yeah.
So there's this thing called shuhubat, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
basically means doubt. If we were to live under Sharia law like these other Muslim countries are, like Saudi and the UAE and other sorts, when you're brought to court, the shuhubat is called doubt, right? So if the judge has any form of doubt, they cannot sentence you to the most severe punishment for that crime that you did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is mainly what happens, because there's always going to be doubt, and you get less than the actual punishment that calls for. Just like in the U.S.,
Yeah.
if there's any doubt, you don't get the full sentence. You get something less than what you did, right?
Yeah, and usually in our court system, if police officers, they add on charges. So if there's like, oh, there's a doubt in those charges, they'll pull the charge. So it'll be lesser crime punishment. Say if
Right.
you have two charges, both 5 years, and you're in doubt for 1 year, so you're not going to get the total 10.
Right. So people might ask now, why is it that there's a cruel punishment if there's a high chance that person might not get that punishment, right?
Yeah.
It's because it's the what if factor, right?
Hmm.
Before someone thinks about doing that crime, it's the what if I get caught and I actually get the most severe punishment in that case.
It's to discourage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's to create that fear factor so that person doesn't commit crime. And as you can tell, it works because in Saudi, it's a safe country. The UAE is safe. And a lot of people say, why can't we be safe as them?
Yeah.
A lot of cases that happen now doesn't even get, like, the person doesn't even get
Yeah. And
sentenced.
are they really under Sharia law? Because I know, like, for example, Dubai, it's like one of the safest places in the world. Like, you have content creators, they'll like, I've
They'll
seen
go
videos on
there.
TikToks. I'm like, hey, I'm about to use the bathroom and go get food. My laptop is still in this
Yeah.
um cafe, and they come back, and obviously everything's still there. But so are they still operating under Sharia law, or is it kind of like a mix with the modern day criminal system?
I'm not sure what they do, but it
Yeah,
might be a mix.
it's a modern day mix, but
Yeah.
I know like Saudi Arabia
They
definitely
still have,
Sharia.
my point is, some, not full Sharia law, but my
Yeah,
point is these countries have some type of Sharia law instilled in them,
yeah.
right?
It kind of reminds. It's really like the American constitutional or American legal system. It's you're innocent until proven guilty,
Right.
essentially.
And another good aspect of Sharia law is my Americans will definitely relate to this, bro.
Hmm.
We are only taxed 2.5%.
Yeah,
Unlike here, 30%, and we get taxed on every single transaction that we make, bro.
yeah.
Every sell we make, everything like that, right?
Hmm.
And also, there's no riba, no interest. So there's no loans anymore if we were under this law.
You just pay back the principal.
Exactly.
Okay.
And think about how much interest we take on as an average American. The credit card debt that
Hmm.
people have, student loan debts, your mortgages, your
Car
car loans,
loans.
your personal loans. Even if you can't afford a $500 purchase any now you can take out, like, do those installment plans with the
Yeah,
interest in
a
it.
firm or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's
Yeah,
crazy nowadays. Everything has interest. And the average American is living paycheck to paycheck now. I think
yeah,
it's like 70%. If we were to have this, so many Americans will have more money to feed their families, to get the necessities they need, to get gas and everything like that. And we also felt this a lot in the last 4 years.
yeah. So this stigmatism of Sharia law, non-Muslims, especially, those racist dudes on comments, always like some random white boy, but not a blanket statement, but they use that as a pathway into Islamophobia,
Mhm.
or they use that as a pedestal. They like, oh, Sharia law is X, Y, and Z, but they really don't understand that Sharia law encompasses, as you mentioned, economic
It's
things.
the way of life.
Yeah,
It has everything in like almost every single
yeah.
situation.
So they might use, a particular criminal punishment which isn't even applied to a degree, and they might use that to bash Islam.
Right.
So obviously, one of the biggest, really, I really think this is the biggest propeller of Islamophobia are terrorist attacks in this day and age, especially with all that's going on all over the globe. 9/11 being the catalyst, is being like the biggest one. It was the biggest attack on American soil since Pearl Harbor. I'm not sure, but I can't think of any other attack that compares. It's Pearl Harbor, and then it's 9/11, and then you look at the war on terrorism. And so you have 9/11, which obviously, there's all these conspiracies, X, Y, and Z, but even with those conspiracies in place, it's still just used to attack Muslims. What I said earlier, the label of terrorist always gets thrown out there. And the more these attacks happen, you always see a spike increase in Islamophobia. So I know there were some recent attacks as well
So did you see the Saudi man that drove or ran people over
in
in
Germany.
Germany?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he killed about 5 people, injuring about 20.
Yeah.
But the ironic thing is, he
That
has
dude's
a
yeah, I heard some weird stuff about it. What?
exactly. This guy, he has a Muslim name.
Yeah.
So headlines right away, terrorist attack
Yeah.
in Germany, this and that, just putting the whole terror thing on the headlines and everything like that,
Yeah.
which is going to create another wave of Islamophobia, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, later turns out that he's an ex-Muslim, that he's a Zionist, and he ran those people over because he thought that Germany were treating the Muslims too good. So that was his kind of way to rebel and show Germany, hey, you need to teach these Muslims, or treat these Muslims, I should say,
Yeah.
a lot worse.
This guy's all over the map, bro.
Exactly. In the recent New Orleans attack,
Yeah.
bro, this guy, he was driving a pickup truck, I believe. He
Mm-hmm.
ran people over as well,
Yeah.
and he had an ISIS flag.
Yeah. A lot of people doubt his story. Like, there's a lot of a lot of people are questioning the narrative because he's a veteran, right? And at the same time that
The
the truck
Cybertruck,
blew
yeah.
up.
And he was a vet too,
Yeah,
and they
and
were at the same base,
yeah,
which is interesting. But they claim that they're not
they're not connected. Yeah,
related.
which is like military installations are cities, right? They're literally cities, even overseas at times. So, being on the same base, I've met people on the same base countless times. But his entire story, a lot of people, even on like military channels or like it's social media pages, they're like this story's like a red flag, like something's not adding up because he's a veteran. I think he was in real estate or he was in some business as well. He had like a YouTube channel as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and in his YouTube channel he was, it's what you expect from, I don't want to say realtor if he wasn't a realtor, but he was just a normal random veteran dude with the business going on, and this attack happens. I still don't remember if they labeled any motives. I guess ISIS would cover it, and I talked about ISIS in our last episode, saying they're always trying to make a comeback. It was more on the lines of border security, but ISIS is still a thing out there.
And I wanna make clear that like these so-called Muslims, bro, they're not, right? They're hypocrites, and they don't do the religion just, right? They
Yeah.
put a bad image on the religion, which affects all of us. And my main point is that if all Muslims were terrorists, right?
Yeah.
How many terrorist attacks would happen a day?
Yeah.
There's 2 billion Muslims worldwide.
Yeah.
You would think that every day a large attack would happen, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the case. It's only a small percentage of these so-called Muslims who have a twisted view on the religion.
Yeah. It leads into my next point of how this narrative of language is used, and it shapes the perspective of Muslims, right? Cuz if one Muslim does an attack, right? It's blamed on every Muslim. Yet we don't blame every Christian for what Hitler did.
Right.
Right. So I just say it's these sensitive white boys online, bro. They just get triggered for some reason. I guess they're insecure or something. And then this language is being used. It's also being used by politicians. And you see Trump in his first term with the Muslim ban, and that caused a rise in Islamophobia as well. And he's back in office, and I think he reinstated the Muslim ban.
Bro, this is on steroids this time.
Huh?
It's worse this time.
Yeah, but like even when you look into like, I kind of am like, he said Muslim ban, but when you look into the law, it's these countries that have like very high level of terrorist like activity. These are countries where the government has collapsed, right? So I remember talking to one of my friend when I was still in the military about Trump. We were just like waiting in line, and we said like if he had somebody to tell him like, bro, don't talk like this, talk like that, how people would perceive him differently. like
100%.
the narrative, like the language
100%.
used. And you can see this in this, Muslim ban as well, especially in his first term, where it limited traffic from countries where there was a lot of terrorists. There was ISIS, there was all these random militias popping up, and obviously they all want to make a name for themselves on an international level. And what best way to do that is to attack on Americans or attack on American soil. So, but the language and the narrative these politicians use definitely impacts Muslims, everyday people. It has an impact on Islamophobia.
And you know what the worst part I think is? Now this is just my own theory. No one take it and run with it, right? But my theory is that the politicians know the truth about the religion.
Yeah.
That it's not a terrorist religion, it's not this and that. They know that it's a peaceful religion. However, they still choose to paint it as such.
They need a scapegoat, when
Exactly.
their local economy, their constituents economy is collapsing, you know uh there's all these economic issues. You look at like the Midwest, these hardcore, I don't want to say far right, but these established conservative Republicans. You look at their towns, hospitals are shutting down. They don't want to talk about that because they're everybody's going to be like, you suck, we're going to vote you out of office. No, bro, it's the Muslims' fault, right? It's a quick scapegoat, especially when there's something happening on the international level. Obviously, in this day and age with social media, everybody thrives off the negative, right? The negative always precedes the positive. And, it goes into like social media and stuff where going back to harassing and cyberbullying, the Instagram comments. So you gotta TikTok was not ready for the Instagram comments. TikTok users, they're not built for Instagram. I'm glad it's back up.
I want to go back just one point to the terrorist groups, right?
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson recently had the CIA agent on his podcast,
Yeah.
and the stuff he said was like crazy, bro. The CIA agent said he went to like Sudan
Mm-hmm.
for like he was supposed to go undercover, and he went undercover, and it was this government conference
Yeah.
with literally all the terrorist groups in there, and it's just crazy, bro. Like that's how the government of Sudan hosted that.
Really.
Yeah, and there were all the terrorist groups there, and he was undercover. He had to act like them, to make sure that he wasn't sniffed
I
out.
gotta I gotta watch that.
Yeah,
Yeah. So is he like is random white? Like is he
just a
white?
random white guy.
And I ran in
In
Sudan.
Sudan.
Damn, bro got
I don't
balls.
know how he didn't get sniffed out.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's
And
I.
imagine, like, they speak out of it too. Like,
Yeah.
he must have known out of it, bro. There's
You
no way
have
they
to.
would have sent him
No,
out
no.
there.
He
Yeah.
he knew probably like two, three
Yeah.
languages off
And,
rip.
like, he was like, you guys should go watch it. It was pretty interesting.
Tucker
But,
Carlson's
yeah.
interview with the CIA agent.
Yeah.
Interesting. You like him a lot, Loki.
Tucker Carlson, bro, I have one message for you, bro. I like you, but you don't like us. You gotta switch that up, bro. Seems like he's anti-Muslims, though, for real.
Yeah,
But he does put out good content.
really.
Yeah.
For like,
I don't watch all of them. I watch some of the videos.
yeah.
The one that interests me.
Okay.
He's in that propaganda machine still. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems like he's trying to break away,
Yeah.
but he doesn't want to.
Right.
He doesn't want to accept. And so, like, the hate speech on social media, a lot of these high tech companies, like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, they have they're like executives. A lot of them worked with or for Mossad, which is Israel's intelligence agency, and Mossad's one of the top intelligence agencies all over the globe. Like they're internationally, they're like one of the best. And so then they come into, they leave that, leave that private sector, they come into working for these tech companies and they bring their values, right? So what does that say about what the policies they're implementing in these tech companies? It's like one report that like 89%, there was a 89% of like Islamophobia reports were ignored on social media, right? Usually they take down content, you know? Even you look at COVID, if you said anything about against vaccines, they will take it down immediately.
And that was Zuckerberg actually came out
Yeah.
saying that it was the Biden administration who forced him to do that.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of hypocrisy, you know, on social media as well. And then you remember when that Sweden dude burned down the Quran
Yes,
In
yes.
Sweden, the Swedish dude,
I
obviously.
don't know if it was in Sweden. I know what you're talking about. That guy
Yeah,
was definitely from Sweden. But there was another guy. I don't know if it was the same guy or someone from a different country. But the point is, when they burned the Quran, the Muslims got a permit asking if they can burn the Bible,
yeah,
right? And they got approved for it because the guy burned the Quran.
yeah,
So he went out and everyone was watching him. He was about to burn it
mm,
and then he stopped.
yeah,
He said the difference between me and that other guy is our religion teaches us not to disrespect other religions.
yeah.
So this whole thing was a stage and I'm not burning it, right?
Yeah, he tested the system, but obviously no Muslims really gonna go out and burn the Quran. You know, we're not like the Zionists
Not
aren't,
not the Quran, the Bible.
or the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or any holy book,
only
really. Yeah.
holy book, but you know, you have these sensitive racist dudes that all of a sudden they get triggered. They don't like something. Oh, I'm gonna go burn the Quran,
Right.
like little crybabies. And it really shows. I'm surprised they approved that permit. Are you sure he actually got a permit to approve it? This is a weird thing to get a permit
He
for.
made, I don't know if it was a permit, but he made sure it was okay to do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Interesting. Yeah, and if Muslims were to do it, especially in America, you know, all these dudes with hoods would come out and start labeling us terrorists, extremists. But when they do it themselves, it's okay.
It's that double
It's
standard.
that privilege. It's that privilege that runs in their veins.
Another thing for Islamophobia is a lot of people think that Islam oppresses women, right?
Yeah,
The whole idea of why do they have to cover up, but you don't, right?
yeah,
However, men do have to cover up as well. We have our own hijab. Our hijab is different from the woman, but we still have to wear a hijab, right?
hmm,
From our belly button down to our knees, right? We can't have that area uncovered.
yeah.
We're not allowed to wear tight things and things like that, just like the woman. But our hijab is just different.
It's a level of modesty applied to both men and women for for a betterment of society. And you can see people talk about what access to nudes, access to pornography, access to these things have had the effect they have had on mental health. And it's always negative. It's like this is too much exposure. So maybe that level of modesty, it's there for a reason.
And if you look at US and other countries, just back in the 80s, 70s, and even I think 90s, the
Yeah.
women were not dressed how they're dressed now. They
Yeah.
were a lot more modest than they are
Conservative.
now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
especially in the UK. I remember seeing a video about it, compared it to and all of them were dressed like, they had long dresses, long loose clothing.
Right.
So society kind of has changed, but we're starting to, like, therapists, psychologists, they're starting to realize the negative effect of that societal change of access to all these um nudes and all this stuff like that.
What's interesting is that there's a verse in the Bible that mandates the hijab as well.
Mm,
And I'm going to insert it here so the viewers can see. I don't know from the top of my head, but they can see it here.
yeah. Yeah, and so, like, when you actually look, I find it interesting that I saw these statistics that, like, out of all the people that are converting, that are reverting back to Islam, like 60% of them are women. So you're telling me, like, a random uh woman, a random female, in America, in Australia, in Europe, decided to quote unquote oppress herself by reverting to Islam
And you know what's the most ignorant thing that people say under those comment sections?
on, like, on
Yeah, the
them.
ones that when they're like they make her like reels and all saying like Alhamdulillah I took my shahada
Yeah,
today and things like that. But the comment sections people are like, oh, you got brainwashed Oh, you reverted for a man. Oh, they
Mm,
start making their own conclusions when it's just not the truth. They reverted
yeah.
because they knew it was the truth, and that was it.
Yeah. Instagram comments ain't for the wicked. It's not for the faint of heart.
And that other masjid we go to, they have open houses all the time.
Yeah.
And the sisters coming to that open house, the non-Muslims, they try on the hijab for the first time, and they're like, "Wow, this feels really natural. I like the way it looks and things like that."
Yeah.
So that
I saw a content creator. She's like, I went to go shake a hand of a Muslim man, and he said no. And so, we're married white woman, I think she was American, but I don't want to just say it, but she was definitely a non-Muslim white woman, and she's like, I kind of like that because I rather not have random men touch me, right? So you have women that talk about, sexual harassment, groping, and all these things, and Islam it tells you to stay away from that as men. You're not supposed to, and then um, not involve yourself in those activities, but not even go near it. And it stops it at you can't even like shake a hand, right? So ideally,
I really like that point you just said. And back then, the Roman Empire,
yeah,
they didn't have rights for women.
yeah,
I don't know exactly everything, but I can post something here to show you guys as well.
yeah,
But I know they didn't have rights to women. But before Islam came, the Arab pagans, when they had a girl,
mm-hmm.
they really wouldn't keep the girl. The girl will be born. Once they find out it's a
They'll get
girl,
rid of it.
they'll
Yeah,
get rid of it. They'll bury it alive, and that was it.
that was. I know, like a lot of shows make notion of that, like Game of Thrones or stuff like that. Medieval, everybody preferred to have a man to
Okay.
carry on, help with the work, carry on the family lineage. So, but Islam stopped that. Islam,
Islam stopped it, and they gave the woman all their rights back.
yeah.
So I don't understand how people still think it's oppressive.
They just broke because that mahar these days, bro. They just
They're,
broke.
bro, these sisters they want 100K mahar, bro.
Yeah. So, we looked at social media, we looked at politics, we looked at how non-Muslims are racist, Islamophobic individuals label all of everybody into one category. And we also talked about the media, how they have a narrative going against Muslims, when in reality, and the fact that Muslims fill up the ranks of doctors, of teachers, educators, police officers. We know a police officer that goes to our local um, mosque. I know there was that one in Michigan that got killed, or one,
Yes, a
and one
Muslim
in,
man got
yeah,
killed.
in New York too. So they're police officers. I've met other veterans as well, and I've met Muslim in the military as well. So they're all over the place. So it's that level of hypocrisy, where you just label one for all.
I want to go back to where we're talking about like groups of people
Yeah,
tainting the religion. Um, the other thing that causes Islamophobia is that they see these countries like Saudi and UAE and all that stuff. They instill these laws and they automatically think it's Sharia law when it's not. It's that own country's law.
yeah,
They tie it to Islam when it's not. Like the Taliban, they
yeah,
ban women from speaking and
yeah.
just like not doing the right stuff, right?
Everything really.
And then the comment section is, oh, Islam this, Islam that, when it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like, especially the Taliban, right? So it's unique because it's their own interpretation of the Sharia law. They usually in Islam, you if you don't understand something, you go to a scholar, somebody that's studied the religion. It's established. Like if I sprain something or if I broke it, I would go to a doctor to figure out if it's sprained or broken. Same with like, any other subject matter. You go to a subject matter expert. But I know with the Taliban, it's unique that I don't know, it's not a blanket statement, but it's their own interpretation. So all these things that they're doing against women rights, it's unethical, it's unmoral, it's un-Islamic. And I know we're talking about Islamophobia, but I think, we need to be the better individuals and speak out against that, as Muslims as well, because that's a lot of oppression, and they just get away with it for some reason.
And also with the double standards, it's crazy how it's normalized that a nun can cover up, right? With no issue.
Yeah,
But as soon as a Muslim girl does it, or Muslim sister, I should say,
it's a
does
problem.
it, it's a
It's banned.
problem.
It's banned.
Exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, Christian women, especially the ones that are like Orthodox, they cover.
They cover up.
Yeah,
There's a sect in Christianity that still wears the hijab to this day.
yeah.
It's very, very, very few, but there's still a certain sect that still does it.
There's Christians in, I don't want to say Nigeria. There's Christians in Ethiopia. They still pray with like going
In
down on the
sujood.
ground, right? That form of Christianity, it hasn't, had it hasn't been overcome by white supremacists. So they still hold on to their traditional Christianity roots. And I remember I seen a video of at first it was like women being spat on by Zionists in Jerusalem, and looked at the video and stuff, and these were Christian nuns, right? They were just walking, and they got spat on by Zionist settlers. So, right, you go to the Middle East, or you go to, I guess, the Holy Land, Jerusalem, and I think you'll find a lot of those traditional Christian women. They still wear hijab. They still have that veil, just like you mentioned with the nuns. Yeah, so there's levels to Islamophobia. There's stigmatism. There's natural biases. There's learned biases. That society projects onto people through social media, news network. I think a lot of people, especially, um, you know, with social media, they're kind of learning to break away from that, to know that one shoe doesn't fit all, one size doesn't fit all. Um, each individual is unique, especially in modern day where everybody's more focused on economical prosperity for themselves and as a nation as whole.
So, as Muslims, how we combat Islamophobia is to speak up against these attacks
Hmm.
and be like, hey, this isn't what Islam is, this isn't what we're taught. Like, it's crazy how people genuinely think that we just wake up one day and just boom, right? Like, oh, what are they teaching them in those mosques, this and that? Like, we're like normal people, bro.
Yeah,
Like, we wake up too, we go to the gym too, we go to work, we go to get money. I don't know what else. We're normal people. We
yeah,
eat like we're not like we don't have this built-in violence in us that the propaganda machine pushes, right?
yeah,
So how we combat it is just be a Muslim. Go through the Quran and Sunnah and show people what Muslims actually are, what Islam teaches.
yeah.